I'm going to give Facebook a few minutes to let everybody know that we are on live here on Facebook, but happy Saturday. And this is happy day 12 of our personal quarantine. I don't know where you are in the calendar, but we're definitely hunkered down. And I'll share a little bit about my story. But if you've never been to this broadcast, if this is your first time joining me here, I want to say thank you for being here. This is a little segment that I've done live here on the interwebs for quite a while. And so I've been going live through either Periscope and now to Facebook for the last, going on 6 years now. And I'm really excited to share some of the information that I've got today for you, because a lot of our friends have been suffering with this coronavirus outbreak and some of the effect that it's been having on you at home. If you are joining me live, and I'm going to see, let me check here and see, we've got some folks coming on live. Okay, so Pam Fincher Workman. Okay. Amanda has added, I guess, Amanda, you're adding your mom to come see the broadcast, so thank you for that. But guys, here's what's been going on. So we have been impacted in our country finally with this coronavirus outbreak, and with the states subsequently coming in to, sorry about that, just had a technical glitch popped up here. It let me know that one of my guests is in the green room, so to speak. But what we're doing today is we're going to be talking about this sudden situation where parents have been thrust into homeschooling their children and yet have never done that before. And so I've seen a lot of funny memes going around on the internet, seen a lot of parents writing articles, and now we're seeing blog posts. And as the weeks progress, we're probably going to be feeling the real impact of this. And so a lot of parents are dealing with a situation that they've never had to handle before, only given basic information from their school districts, because again, our school districts are having to scramble because teachers and administrators were given no notice. It was just, we're shutting down and this is how it's going to be. And so a lot of parents have just been sort of caught off guard. So what I've been doing all this week is I've been sharing with my followers and listeners a chance for you to get some helpful hints on how you can homeschool your children at home, how to take the work that your school has given you and sort of incorporate that into your day. And I'm really blessed to have two friends of mine join me in the broadcast today, because we also have parents that are dealing with either gifted or special needs students. So we're going to be talking a little bit today about how to handle that, how to handle dealing with IEPs and 504s. How do you work with your children at home when they're special needs, and especially when you're being told not to gather in groups of more than 10. I mean, they are asking us to stay at home, and this puts a lot of stress on us. I mean, I know my husband and I have been quarantined 12 days now into this cycle, because we ourselves found out after we got back from my niece's wedding that we had been exposed to coronavirus. And so it was kind of scary for us, because I had surgery 3 days after we got back. So I had to let my doctors know. I had to inform them that we were exposed, and what could we do? How could we go ahead with my procedure? Well, my doctors said, because I come from a country that didn't have any diagnosed cases, we didn't know until after we got back, and one of the guests started showing symptoms and also was diagnosed. So we didn't really know. We put ourselves under self-quarantine. We will come out of that on Tuesday. But most of the nation now is in lockdown. And from what we are being told by various sources, this could go on longer than just a week or two. And we're going to be feeling the effects of this for quite some time, because schools have also had to cancel proms, graduations, their year-end. College students who are supposed to be graduating, they're not going to be able to walk in their ceremony. So this is affecting a lot more people. But what we want to hone in today on is how to help you and give you some resources if you are at home dealing with special needs children. So I'm going to check the comment thread really quickly and say hi to our guests, because we do have some people that have been popping in. So Amanda's here. And so Rachel and Sydney and Sarah, thank you guys for liking the post. And again, share this with your friends, because we want to have this as a live Q&A. So I'm very excited to bring in a couple of my friends. So I'll be adding them now to the broadcast. I can't wait to have them share their expertise. So I'm going to be adding Mikayla Dreyer. Hi, Mikayla. How are you doing?
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Glad to have you here. And then I'm going to be adding my friend Wendy Sullivan. So I'm going to get Wendy here on screen. And here she comes. Hi there, Wendy. How you doing?
Hey, you need to turn the wrong way.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
There we
How
go.
you doing?
Doing all right.
Well, good. Well, ladies, listen, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate taking the time to help us out, to answer some questions. I had some questions come in just from other people asking me. And of course, I had to say, I don't really know, but I'll ask some friends of mine who know. So I'm going to be just posing some questions to you. And then as we get comments in the thread here, hey, good morning, Megan. How are you doing? Good to see you. That's you, Judy. You have an autistic girl and a general anxiety diagnosis. Great. Well, Judy, please let us know if you have more questions, because that's what they're here for. So first, a little bit of introduction. So Mikayla, I'll start with you. Why don't you share with viewers and our audience just a little bit of your background, what you do, and the school system that you're
Okay, sure. Yeah. So my name is Mikayla, and I live outside of, well, I live in Kansas City, Missouri, but I work for a public school district on the Kansas side. It's a very confusing Kansas, Missouri thing, but I work on the Kansas side for a public school district where I am the behavior consultant specifically for the middle schoolers. So our district has about 23,000 students. So we have 8 middle school buildings, and we have 4 behavior consultants, 2 for the early childhood and elementary, 1 for middle school, and 1 for high school. And so I do all the middle schoolers. My background, I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and then I have a master's degree in psychology with emphasis in applied behavior analysis. And then I am a board certified behavior analyst. BCBA is our short-term initials. So all that means is it's a fancy few letters for I've done a lot of studying on human behavior and the science behind that, and how I can help people change their behaviors, either increase the ones we want to see or decrease the ones we don't want to see. So
interesting. And Wendy, I've known Wendy for a long time. Wendy and I go long time back in Nashville, and so Wendy, yeah. So why don't you go ahead and share with everybody what you do?
Sure. I am a BCBA like Mikayla. I actually currently work for United Healthcare. And right now I'm working in more the adult population. Same thing as Mikayla, just kind of working with individuals who have what we might call inappropriate or maladaptive behaviors to help them to learn replacement behaviors. I have also spent time in elementary schools, and of course I have a 18-year-old son who is on the autism spectrum and started out with some severe behaviors, but when he was younger, which is kind of what drove me to to figure all this out and drove me here. So, and I have a master's in curriculum design for special education, as well as my BCBA, and I've worked with little ones as well, preschoolers, for a long time.
Awesome. Well, that's why I've got you here, ladies. And so some of the questions that I have been posed, and I know, and we'll talk a little bit about this, but let's see, I've got another comment. See, Tiffany, I just invited our entire special needs family support group to this video. Hope someone gains ideas for strategies for coping and thriving for the days that we are in. So yes, Tiffany, well, thank you for inviting them. And again, if you, I'm going to let you know, guys, if you have questions, feel free to pop them in here, because that's what Mikayla and Wendy are here for. But ladies, let's talk a little bit about, and Mikayla, with you, how with your school shut down, how you've been able to talk to your parents, and maybe some things that you've shared with your parents that you could share with our viewers of just how to transition with this sudden change, especially with the kids who don't understand why suddenly school is stopped.
Yes. So actually, so my school district is in the state of Kansas, and so we are actually on spring break for one more day, and then starting on Monday is when we would have gone back to school. But the governor of Kansas decided earlier this week that we would not be going back for the remainder of the school year. So we have not actually gotten to talk to our kids yet. However, we have started planning for what that's going to look like. I'm sure parents are already doing what they can at home, but what we have gotten in terms of resources, there have been several social stories that people have made online that we have collaborated, and all of these things are links that I will be happy to provide with people, and we could talk about if we want to do it into the chat or whatever.
Sure.
But we've got some social stories, and I can share my screen. Is that correct?
I believe you can.
Okay. So I'll pull one up here in just a second. But basically, what this is it's just a like a picture book, essentially, to kind of talk through what's going on and try to make it into kids' terms, essentially. So it's actually, I should have prepped for this. I didn't add the extension to share my screen, so I'll do that now.
That's okay. We can always
one thing that we're doing, and then the other thing that I think can be really helpful, depending on, anytime we have kids who have special needs, that can mean so many different things. And we have some kids who have greater ability level in terms of what they can comprehend, and some kids that are, have a lot less ability in that area. And so trying to tailor whatever we're sharing to the ability level of the kiddo. And I know Wendy works with adults primarily right now, but has experience with all age groups. And I'm sure that might vary quite a bit as well. So
right.
Let me see if it's going to let me, when I click the extension, I'm going to try to share my.
If it doesn't, we can always share these things with families and put them to share with folks. I definitely want to get your contact info for families here.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Go ahead.
So, I guess, what I've tried to assure parents and calm them and let them know is that, really, this is an opportune time. I mean, they have one-on-one time with their child, as opposed to having the child completely be in on in a classroom setting. Oh, there you go. There it is, Mikayla. Let me, I will show it here in the stream. So here we go. We will add this and let's see if it'll, there we go. There we go.
So here is an example of a social story that I didn't make this. Somebody else made it and shared it in a resource group. But it's just an example of something that parents can use to explain a little bit more what's going on, about how they're cleaning the school. We're going to stay home with our parents to stay safe and healthy. The teachers will send home schoolwork, and we'll keep working hard and go back to school soon. And, that obviously, at least in Kansas, might not mean until August, but, it's something. So.
Right. And it's a way for these children to understand what's happening to them. Because for some children who do not have the ability to comprehend those concepts, it's a way for them to. So, and I'll also be sharing links from my page and also in this comment thread of a great resource packet that I found of a parent and a gentleman who is a teacher, and he put together some great resources for this. So anything you can do with your children with pictures or with any kind of resources like that will help them understand. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and I'd like to jump in there as well, Ronei, because as you said, Mikayla, those would be great for younger children who don't necessarily read. Their cognitive abilities are on the lower side. If you have older children and adults, whatever, that can read, you can get rid of those pictures and just use words. I'm thinking, and even the ones that you might look at it and say, well, my child is a little too old for something like that. Not necessarily. If you get rid of the pictures, maybe even if you want to add their picture, their face into it, that's easy to do as well. But the visuals, I'm just a visual queen, no matter how old the individual is.
Right.
Because you and I need a day timer. You and I need a schedule. We need some sort of a calendar to know what's coming next in our day. My son is 18 years old. He's very, you would use the term maybe high functioning, which I know people in his community don't love. But he still needs, I have a big, long, really cool chalkboard calendar that I got at Hobby Lobby, because it's important for him to know when I'm going to be home and when I'm not. And so I will keep that filled out, and he will look at it and say, Mom, what are you going to do tomorrow? You haven't done your calendar yet. It's really important, and helps lower their anxiety to know what's coming next. What am I going to do next? What's going to happen? And not just be nebulously sitting out there. So take the idea of the social story and adapt it to your individual child or sister, brother, whoever you're working with, and meet their needs, but don't anticipate that that's too young and they probably wouldn't work with that. All of us need to know what's coming next. And so social stories are perfect for that.
Well, I love that. I mean, think about how families have like a family calendar that they reference throughout the day. Even families who have only neurotypical and typically developing folks in their family, they still have that. And it's the same thing. It's just a visual. And we all use them in our lives. And it's about adapting whatever example we have to fit the needs of the learners that you guys might be working with at home.
Well, and I think that that's truly really important. And especially when you're dealing with parents who are also working at home.
Sure.
Because I've had a lot of questions from parents who are working at home who have said, well, what do I do when I have when my spouse just kind of sits and looks at the screen and I've got my kids to deal with and I have to go to work? So that's kind of been some of the anxiety, because again, we're not only dealing with just children being at home, but we're also dealing with parents who are trying to work from home while managing their children.
Sure.
Right.
So I love that idea of my calendar. And again,
schedule.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, for families,
so I'm going to pop in and look at the questions. Let's see here.
Oh, yeah.
You shared it with your group. Thank you, Kristen. Good to see you here. She said, ask the older children to help you add the words. I think that's a great idea. Kristen is a college professor, and so she deals working with students. I love that idea, to ask older children to help you, because again, you are involving them in what's going on.
Yeah. And that's a big part of it too, is helping them to understand they get to be a part of making that schedule also, with some directed choices, of course. But
Right. So one thing I wanted to talk about, and I had a parent even from out of the country reach out to me and ask questions. And I said, well, I'm not in your country, so I don't know how to help you, but talk to me about these IEPs and 504s, parents who are dealing with these documents with the school system. And I know there's a lot of anxiety of, what do I do? I don't know how to do this. Am I going to get in trouble? Have been some of the things that have been asked to me. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Wendy, actually, you're a parent. So do you want to take this one first and then I'll come back in?
Absolutely. So what I know is that the IEP is a legal document between the school and the parent and child. And so it is not my responsibility at home necessarily to fulfill that IEP. That's the job of the teacher and the school system. However, I would currently I homeschool my son. So let's look at that just a minute. He had an IEP because he was in the public school system. And then things happened. We won't go there. Things happened. And so I decided, I work from home. He was in high school, and I decided because I homeschooled my other children. I have two neurotypical daughters who are in their early 30s that I homeschooled through high school. So I got this. I've been doing this for 24 years. So off and on. And so I just brought him home and started homeschooling him. At that point, I didn't need an IEP, obviously, because he was no longer in the system. However, those of you that have them at home now and are going to go back, once they come back, that IEP will be back in place for them. However, use that IEP as to help you direct some of the learning. Every one of those IEPs will have some goals that they're working on. So you can kind of look at that goal. And one of the things that I advocate for when I'm sitting at the IEP table with a parent of a child with special needs is what they will say. Let's say the goal is to learn to work with scissors. It's a OT goal. Learn to work with scissors. And what they'll say is, how are we going to meet that goal? And it'll say something like, Mikayla, you might help me out.
Sure.
How are you going to meet that goal? It would say something like, strategies as needed or something like that. And it's
Sure.
so
Or depending on the goal. If it's a reading goal, we might say, by the end of the third quarter, we will have 60% fluency in reading comprehension or something like that. And that would be the goal. And then they would talk about how we're going to meet those benchmarks in the IEP. And that's the part that may change a little bit or look a little bit different during this time. The other thing that I would add to what Wendy shared is that the IEP is a legal document. And so if you have an IEP in place, it is still valid and the school district is still responsible. So I'm so glad that you said what you did about parents not being responsible for fulfilling their child's IEP. That's 100% true even now. With that said, in this kind of uncharted waters that we're building here, the school district is responsible for figuring out how to do that. And we are working on it. It's going to be different. And we may ask parents or give parents resources for, our obligation on the school end is to be doing the best that we can to meet those needs. And so since we are not face to face and we do not have the same ability to use resources that we have in our school buildings, all we can do is provide home with those resources. At least right now. And I know that there are some talks and some districts are talking about ways to get some physical resources to families and ways that we might be able to do that. But one thing that I do want to emphasize is that the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act mandates that all eligible students have this right. Even in times of crisis, your student on an IEP still has a right to a free and appropriate public education that meets their individualized needs. So that does not mean that all the special ed students in the school will get the same plan to go home. It still needs to be individualized. And I say that knowing that that is a big ask and knowing that that is going to be really difficult to provide. And I know also that not all school districts are equally equipped to be able to do that to the same level, which is a difficulty. And that puts a lot onto parents who are wanting to ensure that for their children. And that's one reason that I wanted to come onto this broadcast, because the school district that I happen to work with we are in a relatively wealthy county. And so our district has quite a bit of resources, which is why we even have BCBAs within the school district, because many school districts across the country do not even have that. And as a result of that, we have access to a lot more information to be able to provide some of these things that a lot of families across the country don't have. And so I'm going to be happy to be able to share resources and things that we are going to recommend to other parents who don't have special ed consultants at their school district who are going to be helping them navigate that. So, but your kid still has a right to all of those things. And the school district still has an obligation to be able to be providing those to the best of their ability. And that's the bottom line that I want to make sure that parents are understanding here about their own rights and their child's rights.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Now, some of the comments have been popping in. So Kristen said, many parents are concerned their children will get behind because they do not have access to the resources listed in the IEPs. She says, unfortunately, many IEPs are not detailed enough to help the parents. She said, I see a lot of various interventions as needed type language.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was alluding to earlier. That's what you're going to find when you go to those goals and you look at them and you see, okay, I'm working on reading, and they say, how are we going to meet those goals? That's exactly, you'll get a line, various interventions. And so my suggestion here is going to be, there are so many resources out there right now. Lots and lots of people are giving them for free. And so what you would want to do is take a look at that. Okay, so we want to be working with scissors, or we want to be reading better, any of those kinds of things. What you want to do is just Google that. Reading at second grade level, even if you're, whatever level you think that your child might be reading at, just early reading, those kinds of things, whatever that goal happens to be, do a Google search and see what's out there for help with that. And kind of look at, here's the deal. I'm going to say is at the beginning of this, it's going to look like a lot of work, and really it kind of is. But the thing is, you're working hard. This is what I tell my families, you're working hard right now to kind of hold everything together. If you will work hard in a different way and do some prep at the beginning, you're going to work. It's going to be easier and easier and easier if you get some things pulled together to work with your students. That's just kind of a homeschooling thing as well. You haven't had any time to prep. You haven't had any time to get ready. Now you're kind of thrown into this. So
Right.
I suggest that you step back and take a breath. Another thing that I really wanted to say was just let's level set here on our expectation. Is it your job to recreate the school classroom? Absolutely not. Is it your job to meet those benchmark goals? No. It's your job right now to try to parent your child and to try to incorporate some learning into your home to the best of your ability. So take a breath and realize that it's not your responsibility to do this. And if they don't finish all those benchmark goals this year, we'll pick it up and try again next year in the school system. So breathe just a little bit is the thing that I want to say. Just because if you're so stressed with, well, how am I going to do all this? Then your child's going to pick up on that anxiety. There's just going to be anxiety between the two of you, and it's going to be a hot mess for a while.
Right. So Tiffany, what would be awesome is have a resource of goals and ways to help kids work toward them with commonly found things at home. That's a great idea. So again, like what Wendy was saying, take a breath, realize, and what I noticed, and I tried to encourage parents earlier in the week when I did my broadcast was, when we hear, oh, the school is closed down for the year. Well, they hear the rest of 2020. Now, in our mind, we equate with the year as end of the year.
Yeah. Yes.
And so we're dealing, we are hopefully going to come out as these things slow down. China's already showing signs of their cases now slowing down to where the medical teams there, they've been able to get through a day or two with 0 cases, right? As with any virus, we know that this is probably going to come around in another wave again. But it'll give the doctors time to develop a vaccine and work on this. So we collectively as a world are going through this. It's not like it's just hitting certain pockets. Everyone's being affected by this. So like you said, our expectations need to be lowered a little bit, especially in a time like this, because, and what I noticed, Tiffany also said in a little bit longer comment up here, she said, we already are, they homeschool, but they are locked in. So it's a different sort of loss for our kids. The biggest thing that I've learned that my kids are basically dealing is with a death. And we've had to walk through the stages of grief, which is hard when you have kids with various needs, both neurotypical and atypical. They have IEPs and regular tutors. But again, everybody is scrambling. Schools, administration, the staff, the teachers. This was not expected. And so everybody's trying to figure this out. Let's see. I'm just going through the comments here to see.
And I want to speak to something that Tiffany and Kristen were speaking about in the comments about what the school closing means and what it means with that. So one thing that somebody brought up is that when the school is closed, that doesn't actually mean the school is closed. So yes, that's correct. When the school buildings are closed, that is true. And when we, like in the state of Kansas, we are out for the rest of the year, but that doesn't mean that our kids aren't going to be learning. It just means that we're going to be moving to an e-learning, virtual learning platform. And one thing that is to be noted here about about those closures is that if a school closes to slow or stop the spread of this virus, if it does that and is not providing services, educational services to the general student population, then the students with IEPs are also not required to be provided materials. But as soon as that school starts providing general ed resources and learning again to their students, so as soon as the school launches their e-learning or virtual learning, then that is the same time that the IEPs are also expected to be implemented. Does that make sense?
Yes,
so if the school is closed, so one thing, before Kansas closed for the rest of the year, we originally were just for 2 weeks. And the plan was it would be 2 weeks off entirely. And so during that 2 weeks time, no kids would be learning, at least not by the school's direction. And so that would mean no IEP services would be delivered either. Now that we're going to be done for the rest of the school year, we are going to go back to school sooner on a virtual platform. And as soon as we do that, our kids on IEPs will also be will have the right to be getting their individualized education as well. So if we're not meeting in person, everybody is still entitled to the same education as long as it's being given to every other kid in the country, or not country, in the school or county or whatever it is. Then the kids on IEPs are also, we still need to be providing those services to them. So if standard curriculum is being provided, then individualized curriculum should also be provided.
Makes sense.
And when the school year is done, like Tiffany mentioned this, when the governors declare the school year is done. So right now, Kansas is the only state that has done that so far, unless something has changed this morning. And all that means is that our buildings and our in-person instruction is done for the whole school year. And I believe that that does include extended school year, summer school. We will not be doing in-person instruction, but we will be providing learning during that time. I don't know if there are other places in the country that are going to be doing done, and they're going to waive the requirements for grades. I know the state of Florida, they were the first ones that they waived all the standardized testing. And then yesterday, the federal government announced that they were going to waive standardized testing requirements for all states for the year. So there are those kinds of changes that may be made. But to my knowledge, nobody is shutting down schools and not moving over to some virtual learning curriculum, at least not to my knowledge. And I know that there are districts that won't be able to do that, and they may shut down totally. But it's a different ball game in those areas. So
right.
Yeah, we've got rural counties where you don't have people. You have people that don't have access to internet.
Right. And those are the kinds of things that the school district, at least our school district, has been talking about even before these were made. And I know that some local internet providers around here are providing internet access for free to students who might not have it. And same thing with equipment. Our district has had a big, like I said, our district is very well funded. And so we have a one-to-one learning initiative going on the last couple of years where all middle and high schoolers have an electronic device, a Chromebook or an iPad that they get to take home. And so our school district has that built in already so that, for situations just like this, we already know our kids have those things. So.
And also, I have been contacted by my cousin because she works with the Boys and Girls Clubs in El Paso, Texas. And so when you're dealing with children who are English as a second language, even, they're dealing with a whole set of challenges and fears in and of their own of trying to help their children and feeling unqualified to help their children because they look to the school district for a lot of guidance. So I've also noticed that Comcast and different companies are offering and have been making offers here for free of helping people who need internet and they need it for like e-learning purposes to offer some of those services to families. So let's see. Yeah, the chat line, the comment thread is going wild here. So, Tiffany, Kristen says, Ohio is on extended break right now, but is working on a plan. And then Tiffany, the governor is basically leaving it to the districts because we don't have resources for every student to have access to instruction electronically. And so again, that goes back to that point, ladies, that you were saying, and Wendy, what you were saying is just for parents to search for and look. There's so much information out there on Google, so many teachers and specialists who are offering content for free for parents to access. So again, it's just using those IEPs to be a guideline for them so that they can then find a similar resource that they can implement and use at home.
Yeah, and just really get creative with that kind of thing. Somebody said in a comment earlier, it would be nice to have something, just a list of things that you can do at home with things that you've already got, which is really what you're going to have to do. Did you want to say something, Mikayla?
Well, I was just going to say, so one thing that our special education team, our special education leadership team in the district has been doing, we're supposed to be on spring break. And we're not very good at that because we know that there's a lot of work ahead of us. And so we have a Google Doc going, and I can't share that with you, but I can take everything in it and share. Is what we've been doing is we've had our speech paths, our occupational therapists, our deaf and hard of hearing specialists, our behavior specialists, all of these people are collaborating all of the resources that we are finding in hopes of not having to expect parents to do that. So I'm happy to share those resources with you guys so that we can pass those out. Because I realize that it's overwhelming, and for parents to try to piece through what's this, how is this going to meet this goal, is this going to be appropriate for my kid, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's lots of other teachers like the ones that I'm working with who are collaborating and trying to make these things more accessible to families to be able to do at home, so that you guys don't have to dig through. There is a ton out there. And it's a matter of finding what's going to be best. And we can absolutely help you find those things. And like I said, I know not all districts have special ed consultants that are on staff to be able to do these kind of things, to be a liaison between teachers and home and all of those things. But Ronei has found us. So we will help connect anybody who's watching this here with the resources that you guys need to be able to do it. But I do want to also emphasize what Wendy said earlier, though, about taking a deep breath and lowering expectations a little bit, and being realistic about what things might look like. So
right, absolutely. Because again, I feel like this is Michael and I were taking walks because we're trying to get out of the house, but can't go work out because our gym's closed, and we can't go to the movie theater because the theaters are closed, and so we have found ourselves taking walks every day. And what we've noticed is there are a lot of people out walking. Yeah. There's dads riding bicycles with their kids because they're home working. There are people in the parks. We're all staying safely distanced from each other, but it's funny how even people are like, hello, how you doing? And, or when we pass each other on the sidewalk, we give ourselves space, but there are a lot of people out, and it's almost like a Norman Rockwell-esque sort of feeling, Michael said, is that we're getting back to the days of where people did spend more time doing those kinds of things. I encouraged parents to, if the weather is good where you are, get your children outside. Take them somewhere. Let it become an impromptu, science walk. Make it a scavenger hunt. And I've been trying to provide different just ideas and resources on my page. And again, I will be getting contact information for both Mikayla and Wendy here. So ladies, if you want to, I don't know if you want to put it in the comment thread, you're more than welcome to do that, to let folks know how to contact you if they have questions. Rachel says someone is saying it's time to rebalance the world. Right. It could be. I mean, there's so many different things happening. I ran across a page from Venice, Italy, where the canals are clear. That it only took a few days for people to not be in the way, so to speak, and the canals cleared and the swans came back. Yeah. So there are so many, and with access to plays, to museums, to different things that can be interactive ways that your children can still get involved and do things. There are so many creative ways that you can engage your children. Kristen says we are spending as much time on this as possible outside. So much education that you can do outside. Yes, absolutely. Find out your state parks and county parks and go outside. Avoid places that have playgrounds, right? So that you don't have to say no or deal with the meltdown when you have to say no. Yes, and playgrounds where other people are bringing their children. You don't have time to Lysol that whole thing or your kids. But again, it's just getting creative with what you have at home and what you can do, taking your children places. I even just, for fun, because I literally thought I could go to the shoe store. I literally thought I could go to the shoe store, but yes, it was closed. But I ordered a frap. I went and got a drink, and I just rode around in the car, looking at things and seeing what's happening. For older children that are experiencing this, have them write down what they're feeling. Have them draw pictures about what they're feeling, and then help them walk through some of that, because that's a way for them to cathartically sort of manage those feelings and get them out, share them with you as the parent. That way you also know what's going on with them and help them walk through some of those things.
Another thing I want to add to that, Ronei, is that, a lot of times when parents are trying to think about how they're going to recreate school at home right now, they're picturing a classroom environment and like worksheets and things like that. And what I want parents to realize is that we don't teach that way in a classroom and expect parents to recreate that. We teach that way in school for crowd control, but we have 30 kids in a classroom or, 15, whatever. When you're at home, you are one-on-one with your kid, and learning does not have to look in that same way that it does at school for it to be effective learning. And the biggest piece, like what you're saying, Ronei, you go for a drive and you talk about things. Those are all learning experiences. Right. And what we're going through as a country, as a planet right now together, all of the kids across the world are having to learn through this also. And it is a learning opportunity on its own. And don't hold yourself to the expectation of, teaching fractions to your kid who has Down syndrome in the middle of a global pandemic. Right. It doesn't matter that much. Let it go. Let it go. Right now, your kid's goal can be surviving this, and your goal can be surviving this, and keeping your kid engaged. And, one thing that I tell teachers in the classroom all the time when they're having kids who have behavior issues that are getting in the way of their learning is that I say, my boss even made me a t-shirt that says this because they make fun of how I say it. Rapport is the core, but that's what I tell everybody. Rapport is the core of any intervention. So all of your IEP services that are being provided in the classroom, they're all dependent on what the relationship is like between that child and the service provider and that teacher. And so if you are the teacher now, then the biggest part of your kids' learning is going to be their relationship with you. So focus on that. And talk to your kids as you're driving around and looking at things. There's, 20 museums that are doing like live virtual museum tours. I've got those resources I can share. And do that with your kid. That is learning, and that is building a relationship with your kiddo. And when it comes to a time when you want to work on something more academic, that is going to be dependent on your relationship with your kid now. So focus on that and let your life be the learning experience right now and build from that foundation later.
Right. I love what Rachel said here. She said, we are planning a small garden currently. Lots of peaceful, happy, interesting learning available in that experience. Yes. Absolutely. I mean, that covers science, that covers horticulture, that covers plant biology. They can study the insects. And again, you're engaging your child to get involved in being a contributing member of the family and feeling like they have a piece and a part to play in what's going on.
And then your kid can write about the learning experience in the garden. And then there you go. That's your language arts right there. Everything can be adapted, and it just takes a mindset shift in the way that we're approaching this.
Right. Now, Wendy, what would you say to parents adults, like you said, who might also be themselves struggling with I don't know if you want to call it a learning disability per se, but maybe adults who have managed this somewhat, but now they find themselves overwhelmed and dealing with having to do this at home. What would you say to them?
Pretty much the same thing, as far as taking a breath and recognizing that you are not trying to recreate the school system or the classroom environment, that you are wanting to do this learning and this teaching in a natural setting. And so it's just natural environment learning. And just don't expect more than you should of yourself. And know your limitations, know your triggers, and allow yourself good amounts of time for rest and taking breaks. When I was homeschooling my daughters, we would get in our 4 hours because, that's what we had to do for them for the state of Tennessee. It was 4 hours. And they were neurotypical, but we would have our 4 hours of school. And then as soon as it was over, we called it private quiet time. And we had 1 hour where nobody talked to anybody unless it was an emergency. And we all loved it. They went to their rooms. I went to my room or wherever. And we just had our, I don't need to see your face right now, for all of us. And so, allow that as well. Of course, with working with my son at this point, his life has changed zero with his quarantine. He's going, see, I was the one that was safe all along. And he wouldn't go to his dad. Here's what's interesting. He typically goes and spends the weekends with his dad. And he didn't want to go last weekend because he said, no, there's a virus out there and I'm not going. I'm not getting near. And turns out that his dad's wife is now in the bed with pneumonia. and is waiting on her coronavirus testing.
Oh,
She's
my
a
goodness.
nurse in a prison, which is a petri dish. And so, you know
Oh,
what? I don't know if it was God talking to him. I'm pretty sure it was. But with his, he's like, I'm not getting out there. I'm already safe. I'm already live my life quarantine, so I'm good.
bless
But with so that's what I would say. Another thing I wanted to talk about really quickly, if it's okay, and
yeah,
Mikayla, you
absolutely.
can kind of join in on this, is just some basic behavior strategies. When I get started with a new, of course, again, now I work with some individuals that are older and they live in, sometimes they live at home. And sometimes we're helping them move into a setting as they're older, but with other adults with have special needs, and there's a 24-hour staff in the home. And so they are living in the community, and we're giving them job coaching and that kind of thing. So what we do is do kind of a behavior basics training with them. And so I wanted to kind of go over those things really quickly,
Yes,
if we
absolutely,
could,
Wendy. Sure, absolutely.
so that you can, with all of the things, and you pull together all your resources and get your ideas, but you still have your child or your individual that you're working with that, that has their special needs and that has different things that are going on. So the first thing I'm gonna say is make sure, and Mikayla, you brought this up earlier, I think, is to get them involved in the process and give them choices. And I'm not just talking about what they want to do for work. I'm talking about all the choices that you can possibly give them. Do you want the green plate or the yellow plate? Do you want to sit in the chair or do you want to do this on your bed? Just all the choices, because here's the deal. So much of their lives are and with children, this is good with children. So much of their lives are controlled, and you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this, and they don't have a whole lot of control over anything unless they're alone, typically. And so what we want to do is make sure that we're offering a good amount of choices so they feel like they have some control in the process. The other thing is, don't try to make them sit still for too long at a time working on something. And when they do that, give them some sort of a reinforcer, give them some sort of a reward. You and I work for a paycheck, and we either get that paycheck once a week or once every 2 weeks, once a month, whatever. But when we work because we're getting a paycheck. And so that's where I kind of help to teach the people that are working, my caregivers, is that we all want to work for a paycheck. So they need to know what's coming next. And so the things that they like to do. Okay, we're going to work on this. We're going to go outside. We're going to plant our garden for about 15 to 20 minutes. And the older ones might even want to see a clock, and they'll say, oh, it's 15 minutes. So kind of watch what you say there. Don't give it too specific. We're going to work on this for 15 or 20 minutes or 5 or 10 minutes, whatever it is. And then after that, we're going to whatever for 15 or 20 minutes. So make sure that there's a nice balance between how much work you're requiring and what you're allowing them to take a break as well. Because isn't that done in the school system as well?
Yeah.
I did that when
All
I
the
was
time.
working in the school
We
system.
always do everything in first, then.
That's right.
Yep. And so always
they know what's
your
coming
kids
next.
realize what's going on. And like we've talked about from the start, having that beginning, whether it's a visual schedule of some kind, a calendar of some kind, that they know, during this time, mom is going to be the one I'm instructed by. And during this time, I'm going to be independent.
Right.
During this time, dad might help, whatever. But knowing what's coming up and what's coming next for them, and knowing that there's something that they want at the end of it, is going to make a big difference.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And that might be, cooking a meal with you where they get to decide that there's going to be pizza.
There's your fractions.
Right. There's
There
your
you
fractions.
go. Exactly.
Right.
You can, if your kid's really not wanting to do their math worksheets today, we could say, all right, well, let's do 3 problems. First, we'll do 3 math problems, and then we can take a break, and then we can go outside, and then we can help with dinner. Or, if you get this done with me, then I'll let you choose what we make for dinner tonight. Something like that, giving them those directed choices. But also still having an expectation where they have their part of the deal, the first, and then your part of, your part of the deal first, and then their part of the deal at the end. It's a mutual back and forth expectation. And again, all of this is going to go back to their relationship with you. And so when they have a strong relationship with you and trust you, and when things are positive, then all of your interventions, whatever you design, whatever you plan for the day, is going to be a lot more smooth with the kiddo.
Yes.
Relationship is
And lots and lots of positive reinforcement also. Lots and lots of attaboys and touch on the back if they like being touched. Lots of, oh my gosh, that's really, really good. Oh, you did that really well. Those kinds of things going to, we all love a good attaboy. We all love a good, oh my gosh, I love how you did that. So those things are going to help as well.
And especially during transition.
Yes. Yeah.
Your kid might need more praise or more reassurance during this time that things are changing a little bit. Just like you might. I know that I want to be told more often that I'm okay than I did 3 weeks ago,
Yeah.
We all do.
And the other thing is don't ask them, is that okay? That's another thing that I see parents. Okay, we're going to do this. Okay. Well, if you ask me if it's okay, I have the ability to say, no, it's not okay. So get that out of your vocabulary if you can, because you're not asking them if they want to participate, you're telling them. And so what we want to do is say, hey, we're going to do the worksheet. No, I don't want to do the worksheet. Well, do you want to do 3 problems or 4? Again, give them the option. Do you want to do the odd numbers or the even numbers? Then we'll come back later and do the other set. Okay, do you want to work on it for 3 minutes or 5? If I want them to work for 3 minutes, I will give them the option of 3 minutes or 5, because they're not going to want to work for 5. They're going to want to work. So you're kind of forcing your choice on them, but it's again, allowing them to have a choice in the process.
Sometimes when they get that choice, oh, I get to choose. Well, maybe I will do 5 to see what I'll show up.
Or they do 3 and realize they've done 5, and in fact they've even gone a little longer and didn't realize how much time went by.
And lots of praise there. Oh my gosh, you've done so well. We have an extra 2 minutes of our break or whatever, extra 5. Whatever.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And that goes with, again, and I've had to tell some of the homeschooling parents, all right, homeschool parents, let's not sit back and go, you finally figured it out, because again, homeschooling is not, for me, it was a conscious choice because of the life we were in. These parents have not had a choice. They've kind of been just sort of, here you go.
Right.
So again, as homeschoolers, I have been encouraging homeschool moms, homeschool families, homeschool groups, help these families. Let them see what you do. Tiffany made a great point about using, Zoom is being used so much right now. In fact, their servers were backlogged the other day. It's been taking a couple of days for videos to render because there's so many people on their servers right now. But use Zoom, use Google Hangouts, use FaceTime. Have your kids have they can have a virtual sleepover party, right? They can get together for movie watching parties. Netflix is offering where you can
Netflix is doing that. Yep.
There's a lot of things that you can still do to connect. Thank goodness for these platforms and these resources that we have online, and still be able to accomplish things while being quarantined at home. And hopefully this won't go more than 2 weeks or a month per se, because we do know that at some point this is going to peak. And I hope that we all emerge out of this much more appreciative, and we don't take for granted the things that we do have access to. And I know it's going to make teachers, Mikayla, hopefully, it's going to make these teachers, parents realize how important you guys are.
Appreciate
the services that you provide. I loved Shonda Rhimes. I saw her tweet that she sent out where she was homeschooling her kids. It's like teachers should get paid $1 billion a week because let's see. Kids, Tiffany said, kids mostly need to know that you are going to provide for them in every way, physically, emotionally, and all the things. We're careful with the words we choose. Like, we aren't telling the kids we are rationing food, but instead we are telling them that there is enough food, there will be enough food, and we're going to be good stewards of what we have, and always give them choices. Yes, absolutely, because we want to be careful with the language that we choose to use around our children so as not to cause them to have more anxiety. Because again, we're all walking through this, and the way we walk through this together is going to really determine how successful we're going to be able to emerge from this. So, so unless anybody else have any questions, and I'm just going to check the comment here. But ladies, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. I know I contacted you. I just had so many parents contact me that were concerned, and I had a couple of days where, man, I was okay. It's 3 o'clock. I need to go eat lunch.
Yeah.
to try to help these parents. So thank you so much for your time. And again, feel free to put your contact information if you want in the comment thread here. And
I did that earlier. People can add me on Facebook, just whatever the link is that you've tagged me in on the video. That's fine. And send me a message.
Yeah. Right.
I put my email in there also.
Well, thank you so much for that. And again, parents who have been thrown into this, what you are doing might be worded as homeschooling, but it's really not homeschooling. You are having to take your school and do it at home. It's a very different situation, but some of the things that we do as homeschoolers, we can share with you and help you be successful at doing school at home until you're able to get back into your schoolrooms and your classrooms. So again, ladies, thanks again so much for helping on this broadcast. Folks, you can always find me here on my page, and I'll be glad to share my resources and contact with Mikayla and Wendy both, because we want you to have an exceptional time with your children at home and use this opportunity to grow stronger relationships, which will only help their education in the end. So, ladies, thanks again. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Take a big breath, and we're going to make it through this. And I hope you'll enjoy. You'll join me next week, where I'll be sharing more content. Follow my page here for extra resources that you might need. And again, you can always find me here for coffee and conversation. So, thanks again, ladies. Love you. And we will talk soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a great day.
You too.